There's a version of you that doesn't hesitate, that doesn't overthink, that doesn't break under pressure. But right now, you're distracted. You're reacting. You're stuck in your own mind. This ends today, because what you're about to learn is how to build a mindset so strong nothing can shake it. This is not motivation. Motivation fades. This is discipline. This is control. This is power. If you master these, you become dangerous in the best way possible. Rock it now, before we begin. If you're serious about becoming this version of yourself, then don't watch this and do nothing. Take action. And if you want more content like this, content that builds your mind, content that makes you stronger, subscribe to this channel right now. Because this is where you come to level up. Stay focused. Stay disciplined. Stay powerful. What I'm about to show you next is where most people fail. High voltage discipline. Discipline is doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. Weak people wait for motivation. Strong people act anyway. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your habits. So if your habits are weak, your life will be weak. Discipline means you show up every day. You stay consistent. You keep going when it's boring. Because success is not exciting. It's repetitive. It's uncomfortable. It's lonely. But that's where growth happens. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you build a version of yourself that most people will never become. High voltage power. Power is not loud. Power is control. Control of your thoughts. Control of your emotions. Control of your actions. When life gets hard, most people panic. But not you. You stay calm. You stay steady. You stay in control. That's real power. Because anyone can be strong when things are easy. But can you stay composed when everything is falling apart? Can you think clearly when pressure hits? That's what separates you. You don't react. You respond. You don't complain. You adapt. You don't break. You evolve. High voltage, transformation. Focus sharpens your mind. Discipline builds your habits. Power controls your life. Combine them, and you become unstoppable. No more overthinking. No more excuses. No more weakness. Just clarity. Consistency. Control. You've seen the surface. Now it's time to go deeper. Silence your mind. When everything, the loudest war you will ever fight, is not out there. It's not in your workplace. It's not in your relationships. It's not in your finances. It's in the 6 inches between your ears. And most people are losing that war every single day. Not because they're weak, not because they're broken, but because nobody ever taught them how to fight it. Today, that changes. What if I told you that the single most powerful thing you could do to transform your life requires no money, no equipment, no special talent, and no perfect circumstances? What if the weapon that unlocks everything, discipline, clarity, confidence, success, peace, has been sitting inside you this entire time, buried under noise you never chose to carry? That weapon is a silent mind. And today we are going to talk about what it truly means to silence your mind. Not suppress it, not escape it, but master it. Completely. Stay with me for this one. I promise you, something in this video is going to land differently than anything you've heard before. Welcome back to this channel. If you're new here, you found this place for a reason. We don't do surface-level content. We go deep. We go honest. We talk about the things that actually change people from the inside out. If that's what you're looking for, hit subscribe right now. I put out content designed for people who are serious about their inner life, and I don't want you to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Part 1, The War Inside. Close your eyes for a moment, and just listen to what's happening in your head right now. Go ahead. Actually do it. What's in there? For most people, it sounds something like this. Did I say the wrong thing yesterday? I need to respond to that message. What if this doesn't work out? I should be further along by now. What are they thinking about me? I'm behind. I'm failing. I don't have enough time. And it never stops. From the moment you open your eyes in the morning to the moment you finally collapse into sleep at night, the mind is running, narrating, judging, predicting, worrying, replaying, projecting. It is the most exhausting marathon in human experience, and we run it every single day without ever acknowledging that it's happening. The ancient Stoics had a name for this condition. They called it being a slave to your own thoughts. And the philosopher Epictetus, a man who was literally enslaved by another human being, looked at the noise inside most people's heads and said, "That is a worse prison than any chains. Because chains on your body still leave your mind free. But a mind enslaved to its own noise? That person is trapped everywhere they go." Part 2: Why the Modern World Wants You Loud. Here is something they don't teach you in school, and something the modern economy absolutely does not want you to know. A quiet mind is a free mind. And a free mind is a mind that cannot be easily controlled. Think about the entire architecture of the digital world you live in. Every platform, every notification, every headline, every algorithm, it is all engineered with extraordinary precision to keep your mind loud. Not because the people who built these systems are evil, but because a loud, reactive, distracted mind is a consuming mind. And consuming minds are profitable minds. You are the product. Your attention is the currency. And the noisier your inner world, the more of that currency you spend without ever realizing it. Marcus Aurelius wrote something in his private journals. Remember, these were never meant to be published. He wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." He was the most powerful man in the known world. He had every luxury, every distraction, every comfort available to him. And he still understood that the only real sanctuary, the only place that was truly his, was the silence inside. He was describing something you also have access to. Right now. Today. But you have to choose it. And choosing it in a world designed to steal it from you is an act of radical rebellion. Part 3: What a silent mind actually is. Let me clear up a massive misunderstanding before we go any further. Silencing your mind does not mean having no thoughts. It does not mean becoming emotionless. It does not mean detaching from life, from people, from joy, from pain. A silent mind is not an empty mind. A silent mind is a governed mind. Think of it this way. Imagine two generals preparing for the same battle. The first general has a room full of advisors all shouting at once. Conflicting reports. Panic. Noise. He can't think. He reacts to whatever is loudest in the moment. He gets pulled in every direction and calls it strategy. The second general has the same information, the same challenges, the same stakes. But his room is quiet. Not because there's nothing happening, everything is happening, but because he has trained himself to hear only what matters. He sees clearly. He moves with intention. He decides instead of reacting. Which general wins? That is the difference between a loud mind and a silent one. Silence is not the absence of thought. It's the absence of unnecessary thought. It's the ability to let the noise pass without grabbing onto it. To observe what's happening in your head without becoming what's happening in your head. The Stoics called this the observer self. The witness. The part of you that watches the thoughts without being dragged by them. That is what we are developing today. Part 4: The science underneath the philosophy. Now let me give you something the ancient Stoics didn't have, the modern science that confirms what they already knew. Your brain has what researchers call a default mode network. It's the system that activates when you're not focused on a specific task. It's responsible for mind-wandering, self-referential thinking, rumination, and what scientists call spontaneous thought. In other words, it's the noise machine. Studies have shown that people spend nearly half their waking hours thinking about something other than what they're actually doing. And here's the part that should stop you cold: that mind-wandering is consistently associated with lower happiness. Not sometimes. Consistently. The researchers didn't find that daydreaming about pleasant things made people happy. The act of being pulled away from the present moment, regardless of where the mind went, correlated with unhappiness. Your mind being loud is literally costing you your well-being. And the studies on contemplative practice, whether it's meditation, focused breathing, deliberate stillness, show measurable changes in the brain. The prefrontal cortex, which governs rational decision-making and emotional regulation, actually grows with practice. The amygdala, which governs fear and reactivity, quiets down. A silent mind is not a mystical concept. It is a neurological reality that you can build, the same way you build a muscle, through consistent, intentional practice. Part 5. The voices that are not yours. Before we talk about how to silence the mind, we need to talk about something harder. Not all the noise in your head belongs to you. Some of it does. Your instincts. Your genuine desires. Your authentic reactions to real experiences. That voice, that quiet voice underneath all the noise, that one is yours. But a lot of what fills your head was placed there by other people. The critical voice that sounds like a parent. The anxious loop that sounds like a teacher who told you that you weren't smart enough. The shame spiral that sounds like a partner who made you feel like too much. The low-grade sense of not being enough. Where did that come from? Did you decide that? Or was it handed to you before you were old enough to question it? Epictetus taught that one of the first acts of freedom is distinguishing between what is yours and what has been imposed on you. He called it the practice of assent, consciously deciding which impressions you will agree with and which you will release. Because here's the truth, you cannot silence a mind full of voices you've never examined. The noise doesn't go quiet because you try to push it down. It goes quiet when you turn toward it, look at it clearly, and ask, is this actually mine? Is this true? Does this serve me? Most of the loudest noise in your head will not survive that question. Part 6. The practice of stillness. Let me give you something practical now. Because philosophy without practice is just entertainment. The Stoics were not theorists. They were practitioners. Every morning, Marcus Aurelius wrote. Every morning, he examined his mind before the world could fill it up. He called it his morning preparation, anticipating the day, grounding himself in his values, centering himself before the noise could take hold. You can do this. Here's how. The morning silence practice. Before you pick up your phone, before you speak to anyone, before you consume any content, give yourself 10 minutes of deliberate quiet. Not meditation if that word puts you off. Just stillness. Sit. Breathe. Let whatever thoughts arise come and go without chasing them. You're not trying to think of nothing. You're practicing watching thoughts without becoming them. Over time, not immediately, but over time, that 10 minutes becomes a kind of anchor. It sets the tone of your inner world before the outside world gets a chance to set it for you. The pause practice. Throughout your day, every time you feel a reactive emotion rising, irritation, anxiety, the urge to check your phone, the need for validation, pause for exactly one breath before you do anything. One breath. That's it. You're not suppressing the emotion. You're inserting a tiny gap between stimulus and response. And in that gap you are free. Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the worst horrors of the 20th century, said that between stimulus and response there is a space. And in that space is your power. The pause practice is how you build that space, one breath at a time. The end of day audit. Every evening, take 5 minutes and ask yourself 3 questions. Where did I let noise control me today? Where did I respond from clarity? What can I release before I sleep? Not as self-criticism. As a scientist examining data. You're learning the patterns of your own mind. Because you cannot change what you cannot see. Part 7. Silence as strategy. Now I want to talk about something that most people completely miss when they think about mental stillness. Silence is not passive. Silence is not retreat. Silence is the sharpest strategic edge you can carry. Think about the greatest leaders, the greatest athletes, the greatest creators throughout history. What do they have in common? They are not reactive. They do not let other people's chaos become their chaos. They move at their own pace. They speak when they have something to say. They act from a place of considered intention rather than impulsive reaction. That is not talent. That is training. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoic philosophy, was asked once why he listened so much and spoke so little. He said, "I have 2 ears and 1 mouth." The proportion seems intentional. When you are silent, truly silent, you hear things others miss. You see the pattern underneath the noise. You notice what people are actually asking for beneath what they're saying. You observe the dynamics of a room without being swept up in them. And when you do speak, when you do act, it carries a weight that reactive, noise-driven behavior never has. Silence is not the absence of power. Silence is where power lives. Part 8. When the mind refuses to quiet. I want to speak to something real now. Because some of you listening are going through something that isn't just daily noise. You're carrying grief. You're in the middle of something that has genuinely shaken you. You're living with anxiety that isn't philosophical, it's physical, it's daily, it's real. And everything I've said tonight might feel slightly hollow from where you're standing. I want to acknowledge that. Silencing your mind when you're in genuine pain is not about suppression. It is not about forcing peace over suffering. The Stoic practice of stillness was never about pretending the storm isn't happening. Marcus Aurelius faced plague, war, betrayal, grief, the deaths of children. He did not meditate his pain away. He sat with it. He examined it. He felt it fully. And then, slowly, imperfectly, he chose what to do with it. That is available to you too. Not as a technique for numbing yourself. As a practice for being present with what is real without being destroyed by it. The mind doesn't need to be silent because life is easy. The mind needs to be cultivated into silence precisely because life is not. Part 9. What you win when you win the inner war. Let me paint a picture of what life actually looks like when you've done this work. Not perfection. That doesn't exist. But a different quality of being. You wake up and the first thought is not dread. It's readiness. You walk into a room and you're not performing. You're present. Someone tries to provoke you, in conversation, on the internet, at work, and you feel the reaction arise and then, almost automatically, you let it pass. You respond from your values, not your wounds. You sit with discomfort without running from it. You sit with pleasure without grasping for more. You make decisions without weeks of paralysis because the noise has cleared enough that you can actually hear what you want. You create things, ideas, art, work, relationships, from a place that is genuinely yours, not filtered through the anxiety of what everyone else will think. You sleep. That sounds simple. But if you've spent years with a loud mind, you know that real, deep, untroubled sleep feels like a gift. That is what you win. Not a trophy. Not a title. Your own life. Actually experienced, from the inside, without the wall of noise between you and it. Part 10. The choice in front of you right now. Every person who has ever taken control of their inner world made one fundamental decision. They decided that the quality of their consciousness mattered. Not just their output. Not just their productivity. Not just their results. The actual texture of their inner experience. What it feels like to be them, on an ordinary Tuesday, doing nothing remarkable. They decided that deserved attention. That deserved cultivation. And from that decision, everything else followed. You are here. You made it to the end of this. That tells me something about you. You're not just looking for entertainment. You're looking for something real. I want to challenge you to make that decision right now. Not a dramatic overhaul. Not a perfect plan. Just a decision that your inner world is worth tending to. Starting tomorrow morning. 10 minutes. Before the phone. Before the noise. Just you and the silence you're learning to build. If this video moved something in you, if something landed, if something shifted, even slightly, I want to hear from you in the comments. Tell me, what is the loudest noise in your mind right now? What thought do you wish you could put down? Write it. Let it out. You might be surprised what happens when you name it. And if you want more of this, weekly long-form content on Stoicism, mental mastery, and the real work of becoming someone who is genuinely free. Subscribe to this channel. That is exactly what we do here. Every single week. This is not a channel for passive watching. This is a channel for people who are actively building something inside themselves, who are tired of the noise and ready for something different. You found this video for a reason. Don't leave without subscribing. Because the next conversation we have might be the one that changes everything. I'll see you there. Nothing changes by chance. Stay focused. The Stoic mindset that separates the disciplined from the distracted. The brutal opening truth. Let me tell you what is actually happening in your life right now. You are waiting. Maybe you don't call it waiting. Maybe you call it planning. Maybe you call it thinking about it. Maybe you call it getting ready, or almost there, or just not the right time yet. But underneath all of those comfortable words is one uncomfortable truth. You are waiting for something to change on its own. You are waiting for the right moment to arrive. For motivation to show up at your door. For circumstances to shift in your favor. For life to somehow rearrange itself around your dreams. And I need to tell you, with every ounce of respect I have for you, that it is never going to happen. Not because you are not capable. Not because your goals are too big. Not because the world is against you. But because of a principle so ancient, so universal, so mathematically precise that no amount of hoping can override it. Nothing changes by chance. Not one single thing in the life of a person who built something real happened by accident. Not their discipline. Not their results. Not their peace of mind. Not their relationships. Not their character. Every single thing that matters was constructed. Deliberately. Painfully. Quietly. One decision at a time, when no one was watching, when there was no applause, when the only voice in the room was the one inside them saying, "Keep going." Welcome to Stoic Mindset. If you are new here, subscribe right now, because what we do on this channel is not motivational decoration. This is not content designed to make you feel good for 11 minutes and then forget. This is philosophy built for warfare. The warfare of daily life. The warfare of the distracted mind against the focused will. Today, we are going all the way in. We are talking about focus. Real focus. Stoic focus. The kind that does not depend on mood or inspiration or favorable conditions. The kind that changes everything. Stay with me. Part 1. The myth of the lucky break. Let's start by dismantling something. Because there is a story that gets told constantly in our culture, and it is quietly destroying people's relationship with their own effort. The story goes like this. Someone succeeds. Someone builds something extraordinary. Someone transforms their life. And the story that gets told about them, the version that spreads, the version that feels satisfying, is the story of the lucky break. The right place at the right time. The connection that fell into their lap. The idea that arrived out of nowhere. The circumstances that aligned perfectly. We love that story. We tell it constantly. Because it is comfortable. Do you know why it is comfortable? Because if success is about luck, if the great outcomes of life are distributed randomly by chance, then your lack of results is not your responsibility. It means the universe just hasn't favored you yet. It means your moment is coming. It means you can wait a little longer. The Stoics would have called this a dangerous fiction. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the most powerful empire in the known world, did not believe in luck as a governing force. He believed in preparation. In effort. In the daily, unglamorous, relentless work of becoming someone who was ready when opportunity appeared. There is a famous idea, not originally Stoic, but perfectly Stoic in spirit, that luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Marcus lived that. He did not wake up as a wise emperor. He trained himself. Every morning, before the demands of the empire consumed his day, he wrote. He reflected. He practiced philosophy the way an athlete practices a sport, not because it was pleasant, but because it was necessary. He understood that the man who showed up with discipline every day was not lucky. He was ready. And ready looks like luck to people who were never prepared. Nothing changes by chance. Preparation changes things. Focus changes things. Consistent, deliberate, chosen effort, that changes things. Chance changes nothing. Chance is the story we tell about other people's work when we don't want to examine our own. Part 2: What focus actually is. Now I want to challenge the way you think about focus. Because when most people say they need to focus, what they mean is they need to concentrate harder. Stare at the task longer. Stop getting distracted by their phone. That is not focus. That is attention management. Focus, real focus, is something much deeper, much more structural, much more powerful. The Stoic concept closest to this is prohairesis, which is often translated as will, or choice, or the capacity for deliberate intention. Epictetus placed prohairesis at the absolute center of human life. He said it was the only thing genuinely ours. The one faculty that, fully developed, could make a person unconquerable. Not physically unconquerable. Unconquerable in will. And prohairesis is not something you switch on when you sit down to work. It is not a setting on your brain you can activate by removing distractions. It is a trained orientation of your entire self toward what matters. Real focus is not about what you do for 2 hours in the morning. Real focus is about what you refuse to do. What you stop caring about. What you deliberately, consciously, repeatedly choose to let go of, so that your energy, your attention, and your time can flow toward what actually counts. This is why scattered people stay scattered no matter how many productivity systems they try. They are trying to add focus onto a life that is fundamentally oriented toward distraction. They follow 10 people giving advice. They start projects and abandon them. They consume inspiration instead of applying it. They mistake being busy for being directed. And underneath all of that movement, all of that noise, there is no clear answer to the most important question. What are you actually for? Because focus is not a technique. Focus is an identity. The focused person is not someone with a better calendar. They are someone who has decided, deeply, finally, without negotiation, what they are about. What they are building. What they are willing to suffer for. And once that decision is made, genuinely made, focus is not something you have to force. It becomes the natural expression of who you are. Part 3: The Architecture of Distraction. Let's talk about what you are actually up against. Because I want to be fair to you. Staying focused in the world we live in is not simply a matter of willpower. The environment around you has been engineered, deliberately, expensively, by some of the most intelligent people on the planet, to steal your attention. Every notification. Every algorithm. Every infinite scroll. Every platform that measures its success in minutes of your life consumed. These are not neutral tools. They are attention extraction systems. And they are extraordinarily good at what they do. But here is what the Stoics would say about that, and this is important. The obstacle is not an excuse. The obstacle is the training ground. Seneca wrote extensively about the enemies of the focused life. He didn't have smartphones. But he had the Roman equivalent: gossip, social performance, the endless demands of public life, the seductive noise of popularity and status. He wrote about how most people live on the surface of their lives. Constantly reacting. Never choosing. Blown around by whatever stimulus arrives next. He called this a kind of sleep. A waking unconsciousness. And he said the first act of philosophy, the first act of a real life, is to wake up. To notice that you have been reacting. And to choose, for perhaps the first time, to act instead. The architecture of distraction is real. The forces pulling your attention away from what matters are powerful and relentless. But they are external. And the Stoics were absolutely clear on this. External forces have exactly as much power over you as you grant them. Not 1 unit more. The person who has trained their prohairesis, their capacity for deliberate choice, can walk through the most distracting environment on earth and remain oriented toward what matters. Not because they are not tempted, but because they have trained their response to temptation. They have practiced returning, again and again, to what is real. to what is chosen, to what is theirs. That is the training. That is the work. Part 4. The Cost of an Unfocused Life. I want to sit here for a moment. Because I think we understand intellectually that distraction is bad. We know we should focus more. We say we want to be more disciplined. But I don't think most people have fully calculated the actual cost of living without focus. Not the productivity cost. Not the career cost. The existential cost. Seneca wrote something that has followed serious thinkers for 2,000 years. He said that it is not that we have a short time to live, it is that we waste most of it. He was not speaking about entertainment or rest. Rest is not waste. Restoration is not waste. He was talking about the years, sometimes the entire decades, that people spend doing things they never actually chose. Pursuing approval they never needed. Maintaining relationships that drain rather than build. Chasing status markers that feel hollow the moment they are achieved. An unfocused life is not just an inefficient life. It is a life that, when examined honestly, often much too late, turns out not to have been the one you actually wanted. This is the deepest cost. Not the missed opportunity. Not the unfinished project. The person you were becoming, the life that was available to you if you had directed your energy deliberately, that is what distraction takes. Marcus Aurelius returned to this again and again in his private writings. He knew that time was the only truly irreplaceable resource. He knew that every hour spent in unnecessary distraction, in meaningless social performance, in worry about things outside his control, every such hour was gone permanently. He was an emperor. He had access to every pleasure the ancient world could offer. And he kept calling himself back to his purpose. Not because he was joyless, but because he understood that purpose, real, chosen, committed purpose, is where real joy lives. Not in distraction. Not in escape. In the feeling of your life moving in the direction you have chosen. That feeling is only available to the focused. Part 5. The 3 Enemies of Focus. Let me name the 3 forces that will destroy your focus if you let them. These are not abstract. You will recognize them. You may be fighting them right now. The first enemy is noise. Not just auditory noise, though that matters, but informational noise. Opinion noise. The constant, crushing flood of other people's thoughts, other people's priorities, other people's emergencies demanding space in your mind. Social media is the most efficient noise delivery system ever invented. 14 seconds on a platform and you have absorbed 12 other people's emotional states, 4 opinions on topics you never cared about, and 2 pieces of information that will be forgotten by tomorrow but will somehow occupy mental space today. The Stoic prescription for noise is radical by modern standards. Selective withdrawal. Seneca deliberately spent time in his own company. Not as isolation, but as recalibration. As a way of hearing his own thoughts clearly enough to know which ones were actually his. You cannot focus on what you have not heard. And you cannot hear yourself in constant noise. Audit your inputs. Ruthlessly. What are you consuming that you never actually chose? What voices have access to your mind that have not earned that access? Reduce the noise. Protect the silence. Your clearest thoughts live there. The second enemy is diffusion. This is the mistake of doing 10 things at 60% instead of one thing at 100%. Most people are not unfocused because they lack ambition. They are unfocused because they have too many ambitions running simultaneously, and not enough commitment to any one of them to see real results. They start the business and the podcast and the side project and the new fitness routine and the meditation practice all at once. And because everything is important, nothing is important. The Stoics practiced something they called amor fati, love of fate, love of what is. And one application of that principle is this. Love where you are. Be fully here. Not half here while half somewhere else. Pick the thing. The one thing that, if it succeeded, would change your life. And give it your full self. Not what's left after everything else. Your full self. Diffusion is comfortable because it feels like progress. You are always doing something. But scattered motion is not momentum. It is exhaustion without destination. The third enemy is inconsistency. This is the one that kills the most dreams. Not the dramatic failure. Not the catastrophic mistake. The slow erosion of commitment. The day you skip that becomes the week. The habit you break once that becomes the habit you no longer have. The goal you deprioritize today that quietly becomes the goal you have given up on. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. He wrote about the danger of the small compromise. The one exception. The moment you allow your standards to slip because it has been a hard day, or you are tired, or you tell yourself you deserve a break. Rest is not the enemy. Genuine rest restores. But inconsistency disguised as rest, the day off that your commitment did not authorize, that is corrosive. Because every time you break your word to yourself, you are teaching yourself something. That your commitments are negotiable. And a negotiable commitment is not a commitment. It is a preference. And preferences bend. Build the discipline of doing what you said you would do, especially on the days when you don't feel like it. Especially on those days. Because that is where character is built. In the gap between feeling and action. In the choice to move when every comfortable impulse says to stay still. Stay quiet. Let success speak. There's a man in your city right now who is building something extraordinary. He's not posting about it. He's not telling his friends. He's not dropping hints on social media or looking for validation from people who haven't done what he's trying to do. He wakes up every single morning before the sun rises, he does the work, and then he goes to sleep. Quietly. Consistently. Relentlessly. And one day, seemingly out of nowhere, everyone will see what he built. And they will call it an overnight success. That man understands something that most people never figure out. Something ancient. Something the greatest warriors, philosophers, emperors, and builders throughout all of history understood deeply. Silence is a weapon. And success is the only announcement that matters. Today, we are going to talk about why staying quiet might be the most powerful strategic decision you ever make. Why talking about your goals, your plans, your progress, before they're real, is one of the most self-destructive things a person can do. And exactly how to operate in silence so that your results do all the talking for you. If this channel is new to you, welcome. I make content for people who are serious about building something real with their lives. Not hype. Not shortcuts. Real strategy, real psychology, real results. If that's what you're here for, subscribe right now and turn on the bell. Every week I drop content that you genuinely will not want to miss. Now let's get into it. Part 1. Why people talk too much. Let's start with the question that almost nobody asks. Why do we feel compelled to talk about what we're going to do before we do it? If you've ever told someone about a goal and then never followed through, and almost every person alive has done this, you already know this feeling intimately. You had an idea. You got excited. And almost immediately, before you'd done a single thing, you told someone about it. And it felt good. It felt almost like you'd already accomplished something. That feeling is not a coincidence. It's biology. And understanding it will change the way you operate permanently. When you share a goal with someone, especially someone who responds positively, your brain releases dopamine. The same neurochemical reward that you're supposed to get for achieving the goal, you get early, just for talking about it. Your brain, on a chemical level, treats the social acknowledgement of the goal as partial completion of it. This was studied extensively by a psychologist named Peter Gallwitzer, and the results were striking. People who told others about their intentions were significantly less likely to follow through than people who kept quiet. Because the talking had already provided a portion of the psychological reward. The urgency, the hunger, was partially satisfied. And without that hunger, execution suffers. This is why the most talkative people in any room are often the least accomplished. Not because talking makes you less capable, but because talking about what you plan to do relieves the pressure that drives you to actually do it. But there's more to it than just dopamine. There are 3 additional reasons people talk too much about their plans, and each one is worth understanding. Reason 1: validation seeking. Many people share their goals not to inform others, but to be believed in. They're looking for someone to say, "That's amazing, you can definitely do that," because they don't fully believe it themselves yet. The external validation temporarily patches the internal doubt. But it's a patch, not a foundation. Every time you need someone else to confirm that your goal is worth pursuing, you're training yourself to be dependent on others for your own confidence. That is a deeply unstable place to build from. Reason 2: Identity performance. In a world of social media and personal branding, there is enormous pressure to perform who you are becoming before you've actually become it. People post about the gym before they have a body worth posting about. They announce businesses before those businesses have made $1. They talk about the book they're writing before they've written a page. This is identity performance, and it is the enemy of actual identity development. Real identity is built through action, not announcement. Reason 3: Fear displacement. This is the one that hits hardest. Sometimes people talk about what they're going to do because actually doing it is terrifying. Talking is safe. Planning is comfortable. Announcing is exciting. The real work, the uncertain, difficult, unglamorous actual work, is where the fear lives. And so talking becomes a way of staying in the exciting part without entering the frightening part. It's procrastination dressed up as momentum. These 3 patterns, validation seeking, identity performance, and fear displacement, are why most people talk too much. And once you see them clearly in yourself, you can start to dismantle them. Part 2: What silence does for you. Now let's talk about what actually happens when you stop talking and start operating in silence. Because the benefits are not just psychological, they are strategic, practical, and in many ways, almost unfair to the people around you who haven't figured this out yet. Benefit 1: You protect your energy. Talking about your goals requires mental and emotional energy. Every conversation where you explain your vision, defend your decision, answer questions about your plan, that's energy that is no longer available for the actual execution. And the more ambitious your goal, the more precious that energy becomes. High performers throughout history have been almost obsessive about protecting their mental and creative energy. They said no to social obligations that drained them. They avoided conversations that produced nothing. They understood, intuitively, that the gap between people who achieve great things and people who don't is often not talent or opportunity, it's energy management. Where you spend your energy determines what you build. Silence is an energy conservation strategy. Every time you choose not to explain yourself, not to announce yourself, not to seek validation, you are redirecting that energy into the work. Compounded over months and years, that redirect is enormous. Benefit 2: You eliminate interference. When people know what you're building, they have opinions about it. Well-meaning family members who tell you it's risky. Friends who project their own fears onto your ambitions. Colleagues who subtly undermine because your progress makes them uncomfortable about their own stagnation. None of these people are necessarily malicious. But their input, their doubt, their caution, their unsolicited feedback, creates noise. And noise is the enemy of clarity. When you're in the early stages of building something, you need clarity more than you need anything else. You need to be able to hear your own instincts without a chorus of other people's voices drowning them out. Silence protects that clarity. When no one knows what you're building, no one can talk you out of it. No one can introduce doubt that you then have to spend energy processing and overcoming. You move faster, think clearer, and stay more aligned with your own vision. Benefit 3: You develop real confidence. There is a kind of confidence that comes from external approval, and it is fragile. The moment the approval disappears, so does the confidence. This is the confidence of someone who needs to be seen, to be praised, to be validated in order to keep going. And then there is a different kind of confidence, a confidence that comes from doing things without anyone watching. From making decisions when no one is applauding them. From continuing to work when no one knows you're working. This confidence is built from the inside out, and it does not require maintenance from anyone else. It is the most durable form of self-belief that exists. Every day you operate in silence. Every day you do the work without posting about it, without telling anyone, without looking for a reaction. You are building that internal confidence. You are proving to yourself that you don't need anyone else to believe in this. You believe in it. And that is enough. Benefit 4. Your results hit harder. There is a psychological principle called the contrast effect. When people have no context, no expectation, no preview of what's coming, the reveal lands with dramatically more force. When you announce every step of your journey in real time, you rob your results of their impact. People have already processed the information incrementally. By the time you arrive, the excitement is gone. But when you disappear, when you go quiet and work and suddenly emerge with something real, something finished, something undeniable, the impact is exponential. People can't dismiss potential. They can't argue with results. And they can't look away from someone who built something extraordinary without anyone watching. That is the power of the silent arrival. And it is one of the most effective tools available to anyone who is serious about building a reputation that lasts. Part 3. The people who live this. This is not a new idea. The principle of operating in silence and letting results speak has been practiced by some of the most effective people who have ever lived. Let's look at a few of them, because their stories make this principle concrete and real. The Stoic philosophers. The ancient Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, built an entire philosophy around the gap between words and actions. They were deeply suspicious of talk. Epictetus specifically warned his students about the trap of social performance, of talking about virtue rather than practicing it, of announcing intentions rather than executing them. He said that every time you speak of something you haven't done, you dilute the integrity of the thing itself. Marcus Aurelius, who was the emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the world at the time, kept his deepest reflections in a private journal that was never intended for anyone else to read. He didn't perform his inner work. He did it privately, quietly, without an audience. He understood that real transformation happens in the dark, not on the stage. The builders who worked in obscurity. Consider the pattern of almost every great company, every great creative work, every great athletic achievement. The public story always begins at the breakthrough. But the real story began years, sometimes decades, earlier, in complete obscurity. In a garage, in a studio, in a gym before dawn, in a library after midnight. The work was done in silence because it had to be. The work was not ready to be seen. It was still being formed, still being tested, still failing and recovering and improving. And all of that, all of the messy, imperfect, essential process of becoming, happened without an audience. The mistake people make is trying to perform the messy middle. They want credit for the process before they have results from it. But the process is not content. The process is cost. You pay it privately so that you can arrive publicly with something worth arriving with. The principle in martial arts and military strategy. In virtually every martial tradition and military strategy across history, there is a consistent principle: never reveal your capabilities before the moment of maximum impact. A skilled fighter does not demonstrate his best techniques in sparring. A disciplined army does not reveal its strength before the battle. The element of surprise, the shock of arriving with capability that was not anticipated, is one of the most powerful forces in any competition. This principle applies directly to personal ambition. Your competition, whether that's other people in your field, the circumstances of your life, or the resistance within yourself, is easier to overcome when it doesn't see you coming. When you operate in silence, you are the fighter who does not show his hand. You are the general whose strategy is unknown. You arrive with an advantage that visibility never allows. Part 4. How to actually do it. Understanding the principle is one thing. Living it is another. Especially in a world that is designed, almost architecturally, to make you perform, to make you announce, to make you constantly share every thought and step and feeling in real time. Here is a practical framework for operating in silence. 7 practices. Each one is specific, actionable, and can begin today. Practice 1. The Vault Rule. Designate certain goals, plans, and ambitions as vault-level information. They go into the vault, and they stay there until they're real. No social media. No casual conversation. No testing the idea with friends to see their reaction. The vault exists because not everything is ready to be exposed to the world. A seedling cannot survive the same conditions as a tree. Your goal, in its early stage, is a seedling. It needs protection, darkness, and quiet in order to grow strong enough to survive scrutiny and adversity. Decide right now what goes in the vault. What are the 2 or 3 things you are building or becoming that you will stop talking about until they're done? Practice 2. Audit your social media relationship. This is uncomfortable but necessary. Look at your last 30 days of social media activity. What percentage of what you posted was about things you had done versus things you were planning to do or thinking about doing? If you were posting about the gym before you had results, that's performance. If you were talking about a business idea before the business existed, that's announcement. If you were sharing your philosophy about success before you'd actually achieved anything by that philosophy, that's projection. None of this is a moral failing. But it is a strategic problem. And the strategic correction is simple: shift the ratio. Post results. Post finished things. Post proof. And keep the process private. You don't need to quit social media. You need to change your relationship to it, from a place you go to perform your becoming, to a place you go to share what you've actually built. Practice 3. Replace conversations with action. The next time you feel the urge to tell someone about your goal, pause. Ask yourself, what could I do in the time it would take to have that conversation? What action could I take right now that would move me closer to the thing I was about to talk about? Then do that thing instead. Not instead of the conversation forever. Relationships matter, and there are people worth sharing things with. But replace the impulsive sharing with action. Reserve sharing for when you have something real to show. This practice alone will fundamentally change your output over time. Because every time you convert a conversation into an action, you are creating momentum instead of releasing it. Practice 4. Build a private scoreboard. One of the reasons people seek external validation is that they have no internal system for measuring their progress. They need someone else to tell them they're doing well because they have no framework for evaluating it themselves. Build a private scoreboard. Every day, track 3 things: what you said you would do, what you actually did, and the gap between them. Nothing else. No journaling, no reflection required, just that data. Over time, this scoreboard becomes your primary source of feedback. You stop needing others to tell you if you're on track, because you can see it yourself. You stop needing praise because your own data is more accurate and more honest than any compliment. And you start building a track record, with yourself, that is far more motivating than anything anyone else could say to you. Practice 5. Choose your inner circle carefully. Silence does not mean isolation. The principle is not to never speak to anyone about anything. The principle is to be selective, radically selective, about who you bring into your inner world. There is a difference between seeking validation from everyone and having 1 or 2 trusted people who genuinely want you to win, who can give honest feedback, and who understand what you're building without needing to be impressed by it. Those people are invaluable. Protect those relationships. The test for who belongs in your inner circle is simple. Does this person make me more likely to execute, or more likely to talk? Does their presence produce clarity or noise? Are they building something themselves, or do they primarily engage with what other people are building? Surround yourself with builders. Limit your deep sharing to that circle. And operate in near total silence with everyone else. Practice 6. Embrace the discomfort of being unknown. Here is the truth that the silence requires you to accept. For a period of time, maybe a long period of time, no one will know what you're working on. No one will be watching. No one will be cheering. And that is not a problem to solve. That is the condition for doing serious work. Every great thing that has ever been built was built in a period of obscurity. The discomfort of being unknown is not a sign that you're on the wrong path. It is a sign that you are in the phase that actually matters, the phase where the work is being done, before the recognition has arrived. Learn to be comfortable there. Learn to find satisfaction in the work itself, not in the acknowledgement of the work. Because when you can do that, you become almost unstoppable. You are no longer dependent on external conditions to maintain your motivation. You carry the fuel inside. Practice 7. Let the arrival speak. When the work is done, when the goal is achieved, when the thing you built is real, then you can be visible. Then you share. Then you show. Then you let people see what you built. And this is where silence pays its greatest dividend. Because the arrival of someone who has been quiet is always more powerful than the arrival of someone who has been announcing themselves the whole way. The results speak in a voice that no words can match. And the reputation built on actual achievement, on things that exist, on proof that cannot be argued with, is a reputation that lasts. Let the arrival speak. And make sure that when you arrive, you have something real to say. Part 5. What you're really building. I want to go deeper than strategy for a moment. Because this principle, stay quiet, let success speak, is not just a tactic for getting ahead. It points towards something more fundamental about the kind of person you are becoming. There is a type of person who lives almost entirely for external perception, who makes decisions based on how they will look to others, who measures their worth by the reactions they receive, who is perpetually performing, in conversations, on social media, in relationships, because the performance is the only place they feel real. And there is another type of person, someone who has developed such a clear and grounded sense of their own identity and direction that they genuinely do not need others to confirm it. Someone who can work without applause, make decisions without consensus, and walk a path that others don't understand, because they understand it themselves. Someone whose confidence does not come from outside, it comes from the daily practice of doing what they said they would do, quietly, without an audience. That second type of person is who you become when you commit to silence. And here's what's interesting. That second type of person tends to attract far more genuine respect and admiration than the first type. Not because they seek it, they've stopped seeking it, but because authentic, unperformed presence is magnetic in a world full of people performing. When you stop needing to be seen, you become worth watching. When you stop talking about what you're going to do, people start paying attention to what you actually do. When your results speak, people listen, with a quality of attention they never give to announcements. This is the paradox at the heart of this principle. The more you release your need to be known, the more deeply known you become. Not by everyone, you don't need to be known by everyone. But by the people who matter. By the work itself. And by yourself. And that last one, being known to yourself, being someone who keeps promises to themselves, who follows through privately, who can respect what they see when they look honestly in the mirror, that is the foundation of a life that actually means something. Part 6. The daily decision. Every single day you are making a choice. It might not feel like a dramatic choice. It might feel like a small, ordinary moment. But it is a choice that compounds. Every time you feel the urge to announce something you haven't done yet, and you redirect that energy into action, you are choosing the path of the builder over the path of the performer. Every time you resist the pull to seek validation from people who haven't earned the right to evaluate your vision, you are choosing internal authority over external dependency. Every time you stay in the work when no one is watching, when no one is praising you, when no one even knows you're there, you are building something that most people never build. You are building integrity. Real integrity. Not the kind you talk about, but the kind that lives in the gap between what you say you'll do and what you actually do, when no one is watching. That integrity is the foundation of everything. Every great relationship, every lasting achievement, every business that endures, every reputation that holds, it all sits on that foundation. And it is built in silence. In the ordinary, unglamorous, daily decision to do the work instead of talking about it. Start today. Not loudly. Not with an announcement. Just start. Quietly. Decisively. And let the work begin to speak for itself. Let's bring it home. The world is full of noise. Full of announcements and declarations and performances and people telling you who they're becoming before they become it. That noise is everywhere. And it is completely normal to get swept up in it, to mistake talking for doing, to confuse performance for progress. But now you know the difference. And knowing the difference changes everything. Stay quiet. Do the work. Let your results be the announcement. Let your success be the proof. Let your arrival be the statement that no words could ever match. This is the way the greatest builders have always operated. And it is available to you. Starting right now. If this video spoke to you, if something in here landed, I want you to do one thing before you close out. Hit that subscribe button. This channel is built for people who are serious. People who want real strategies for building real things in their real lives. Every single week I put out content at this level, designed specifically to help you think more clearly, operate more effectively, and build something you're genuinely proud of. You made it through this entire video. That tells me you're the kind of person who belongs here. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. Share this with one person who needs to hear it. And then, go be quiet. And get to work. I'll see you in the next one.